primetime player. You know, he does it in practice though. We try to rattle him in practice. He's got ice water in his veins right now, and you know, to have that type of confidence, how we decide to play, you know, the last two games. There's other ways you can play that game. We think that's the best thing to do. Those last two, maybe it's not always like that, but these last two, that's end the ball and let's kick a field goal and get out of here, and that's what we've done.
That's Jonathan Gannon talking about Kyler Murray and what he did at the end of the game with 5:01 left on the clock to lead that game-winning drive. That's now, I think, five either come back in the fourth quarter or game-winning drives in the 16 games since he's been back from injury last year. We'll talk about Kyler specific in the next segment.
Yeah,
we got a lot of thoughts on Kyler. I want to float this past you, and this was in my email to you, so I'm not going to surprise you with this. But my number one thought, Gambo, from yesterday's game, the Cardinals win over the Dolphins, was that is the blueprint. That is the model to how the Cardinals should have been winning games all along. Your defense is suspect. It's not going to be great. You could go out and get somebody at the trade deadline. It's probably not going to change the equation and make you great. You're kind of bringing a knife to a gunfight defensively every single week, and I don't see that changing much. You have to win games because your offense is elite. You have to win games because Kyler is elite, because Marvin Harrison Jr. is elite, because Trey McBride is elite. Yesterday, I kind of felt like this is it. This is the model. This is the blueprint. This is what, at least I thought all along, how the Arizona Cardinals were built to win football games in 2024. Agree? Disagree?
Agree, except for the James Conner thing. It's the outlier. I don't understand. Like, that equation, that doesn't fit into the equation.
Right.
The offense was very dynamic yesterday with Kyler, with McBride, and with Marvin Harrison Jr., the big three. They made incredible plays. James Conner's absence in that, you know, was
part
incredible.
of that equation.
Now, maybe there's just not enough mouths to feed, and maybe James Conner not going off allowed Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride to have the type of games that they had. Both guys going over 100 yards. Kyler Murray going over 300 yards. Maybe if James Conner has a better game and the offense is a little more balanced, Kyler doesn't throw for 300. He throws for 240. McBride has a couple less catches. Marvin Harrison Jr. a couple less catches because they rely on that running game. So I think as long as two of the three are hitting, to your point, and I'm not talking about Kyler, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, James Conner. It's like the Suns' big three, Beal, Booker, and Durant. If two of them go off, you're good.
Mm-hmm.
If two of those three, on any given Sunday, it could be Conner and McBride. It could be Conner and Marvin Harrison Jr. It could be Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. It's going to be hard to have all three of those guys go off. Conner's not going to rush for 100. McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. each have 100 receiving. That's likely not going to happen.
Yeah, see, I like this because this is evolving the conversation even in the ways that I hadn't necessarily thought about, because I think that's what in some ways made yesterday special, is that they took James Conner away.
Yeah.
Okay, you needed to find another way to win that game. Could you do it just relying on your passing game? Was your, it's you look at the roster, you look at the depth chart of the Cardinals offensively, and there's enough talent there where you say to yourself, between Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, Greg Dortch, you should have enough talent that if they take away James Conner, you should still be able to put points on the board. You should still be able to move the ball, but we hadn't really seen it. Every single win so far this year, it's been all James Conner. It's been a James Conner show. Could you do it without James Conner? And I think yesterday, maybe it doesn't prove it, but it does kind of, again, show you the way. You have a passing game that on the right day and in the right moment can be elite enough that if somebody takes James Conner away from you, you can still win. You can still hang points up.
And close games. Win close football games.
Yes.
That's the third game in a row that they've won a one-score game. 3 games, they've won 3 one-score games in a row. They beat the Dolphins by 1. They beat the Chargers by 2. They beat the 49ers by 1. Last year, they only won 2 of those games. Only won 2. They've got 9 games left.
Yes.
And they've already eclipsed the amount of close games, one-score games that they won last year. So blueprint, win close games. Offense has to excel.
Yep.
Defense, kind of bend but don't break. The defense came up with a stop when they absolutely had to have it. I mean, Tua had a good game, but they pretty much held some guys in check. I thought they did a pretty good job on Tyreek Hill.
I'm being hard on the defense. I know I am. I wasn't that overly impressed with the defensive effort yesterday. I mean, like every time in the second half, it felt like every time the Cardinals would score, the Cardinals would allow a score. You know, every time the Cardinals would build a little momentum, the Miami Dolphins would just take it back from them, and oftentimes very easily marching down the field. The third down conversion rate by the Dolphins really, really left a bad taste in my. I mean, it really did. It was just so easy for them because these aren't 3rd and 2s they were converting. These were 3rd and 9s. These were 3rd and 12s they were converting. I guess my faith in the defense getting markedly better over these last 9 games, I don't have a lot of it. I really don't. And so for me, it's going to happen because the offense is elite. I feel like I apologize for being a broken record. I feel like I've been saying this all year if you're a Cardinals fan, but I think they have to be elite in order for games like yesterday to happen. And yesterday, that offense was elite, man, in the second half. It was one of the most extraordinary Kyler Murray games we've ever seen. It was the breakout game for Marvin Harrison Jr. It was the first time 2 receivers had gotten over 100 yards in the same game in 3 years. It was elite offensive stuff yesterday. Now you got to go do it again against the Bears. And you probably got to do it again against the Jets because I just don't think you can count on your defense to win you a lot of games this year.
Kyler had 79 yards passing in the first half. James Conner had 14. Marvin Harrison Jr. only had 2 catches for 33 yards. And then they exploded in the second half. For whatever reasons they did, they were able to kind of explode in the second half and get going. And you know what? If you got to be a second half team and win close games, then that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, I think that's very close to the blueprint. And I'm not, and some days it'll be James Conner, but I think it's going to be hard for, again, Conner, Harrison Jr., and McBride to all have these great games every week. It's probably more likely 2 out of the 3.
But 2 out of the 3 is probably good enough.
Yeah, it should be.
Probably,
like,
as
should
long
be.
as Kyler is the constant baseline running through all of that, right? Like as long as Kyler is, and this has always been the challenge, to get that consistent level of Kyler Murray. As long as Kyler Murray is consistent, then 2 of the 3 of McBride, MHJ, and Connor can be great, and the other doesn't have to, and I think you're probably okay. But Kyler's got to be consistent through that. And maybe I'm wrong about the defense. Maybe Darius Robinson comes back this week, and he's an absolute wrecking ball. And maybe he changes the equation. Or maybe Monty gets a little spicy next week, and he decides to go out and get a dude at the deadline. And maybe that changes the equation. I'm just talking about right now what I've seen. The defense still scares me. There were times Miami made it look so easy yesterday.
Right.
So easy.
Right. But again, like there was one time when they had to get a stop to give themselves a chance. They got to stop.
They did.
They forced a punt.
And they could have done themselves a favor in the opening drive of the game defensively. There were 2 fumbles on the ground. Get one of them.
Yeah.
Get one. I mean, that was the whole game. I was scared to death that was going to be the reason why they lost. That opening drive when there were 2 forced fumbles and the Cardinals fell on neither one. The second one, I have no idea how they didn't fall on that.
Stills
ball.
had the strip sack that Austin Jackson recovered, and Ndimukeji punched out the ball from Hill, and I think it got recovered. I think Jones recovered it for Miami. So there were 2, but that was second and goal at the 8. You almost had a big turnover right there, and you didn't get it. So a couple times. And then later on, Tua had a fumbled snap that they were able to jump on.
Thanks for watching Burns and Gambo. Click to see more from the guys and hit the button in the middle to subscribe so you never miss a video from Arizona sports.